Hi, and welcome back to our Power Up virtual book club. I'm your host for today and also the author of Power Up, my book to help support you in your journey to become your best, most confident, and empowered, authentic self. And we're still in the beginning of the book on section 1, which is all about getting to know you. Today we'll delve deeper into chapter 2. So let's get going. Chapter 2, observe. Be aware of your choices and current reality. Awareness is all about restoring your freedom to choose what you want instead of what your past imposes on you. A quote by Deepak Chopra. So in this chapter, the step is to really not just pause and rediscover yourself, but move on to objectively looking at where you are in your life today. And that's why the subtitle is Be Aware of Your Choices and Your Current Reality. And I love this quote by Deepak Chopra, which really encourages us to be aware about what it is we want the freedom and the power to choose instead of what the past might be imposing on us. Keep that in mind because that'll be important as we move into the next chapter. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pick an excerpt from this chapter to highlight what I really want you to get out of the chapter overall. What would you find if you looked objectively at your life right now and compared it to what you described for yourself in chapter 1? Would you be doing what you were passionate about? Would you be sharing your unique skills and talents with the world? Would you be in a place that aligned with your most essential core values as a human being? Objectivity is important here. This exercise is not about judging your choices. It is about being truthful about what you desire most in yourself, and for your life, and understanding where you currently are. In the business world, we call this doing a gap analysis. It is part of a strategic planning process where we define our missions and our reason for being, just like you did in chapter 1. We then develop a vision for what we want to achieve as an organization and what we want to be known for. This is followed by an analysis, where we look at the current state and compare it to our future desired state as an organization. This process is what we call our gap analysis. The gap analysis shows us what we have to change, what we have to add or let go of to move into the new future. So that excerpt gives you a little bit of insight into what we're trying to accomplish or what I'm trying to accomplish with you as you go through this chapter. Now, one of the questions that I would use as a discussion point for you to either reflect on, have a conversation about with someone, or even with me, is the following. When was the last time that you stepped back and objectively looked at your current state? And when I mean objectively, like a scientist would, looking at the facts, not judging yourself, not judging the decisions you made, simply understanding what your current state is in a very factual way. If you've not done that before, why? And if you had, well, what did you find? If you haven't done it before, why not? What was holding you back? Just a few things for you to think about, and then we'll move into our next discussion question. Before we start with the next discussion question, looking at myself, I know that I have a tendency in the past, and even now, to study what's going on and where I am, the choices I've made, in a way where I'm judgy. And I think that it can be hard sometimes for us not to be very self-critical and to judge ourselves versus being objective. I was trained as a scientist, so objectivity is really key as a physician and in other areas of science. I would propose that you try to look like that scientist would, very just factually at your life and see what it brings to light. You might be surprised, especially if you hold off from being judgy. All right. Let's move on to the second discussion question for chapter 2. My next question for you to reflect upon or have a conversation about is the following. If you do look objectively at your life and you compare and contrast it to what you came up with in chapter 1, does it make you feel uncomfortable in any way? I know that oftentimes if we look at where we want to be or a vision for ourselves and we compare it to where we are currently, it can be uncomfortable. I know it has been for me, and then I had to take some accountability for where I ended up. So I'd like for you to just ponder that a little bit, to think about that uncomfortable feeling, where you're feeling it in your body, and what is promoting that feeling for you. Why are you feeling the discomfort? What is it in what you objectively looked at and compared to and contrasted from what you did in chapter 1? What is it that is making you feel that way? And jot it down. Feeling a little bit of discomfort is not unusual in this process. It's pretty much part of the process at times. And it's okay to feel uncomfortable. In fact, I would say that as you do this kind of work and are uncovering a lot of information about you, yourself, your decision making, etc., that you need to get a little bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. It'll be important as we move further into the book. Now let's get on to discussion question number 3 for chapter 2. And that is, have you ever done a gap analysis? Now, as I mentioned in the excerpt, we do this in business all the time. It's part of our usual strategic planning process. Happens at least 3 years or every 3 years, and oftentimes even on an annual basis. And by doing a gap analysis, you're really looking at where you are and where your future state is and figuring out what's in between, like what's that distance? Where's the disconnect between where you are currently and where you want to go to in the future? That's important because it'll bring up for you what you need to think about doing differently, adding, taking away, or deleting in your life in order to move forward to that desired state. Now, we'll talk a little bit about how to get to that desired state later on in the book, but it's a good place for you to spend a little bit of time with some reflection and journaling or conversation and discussion with friends and family just about what your gap analysis might create for yourself or what you might discover about yourself. Remember, we're still in section 1. You're getting to know you. That's it for today, and I look forward to you joining us back for a deep dive into chapter 3. See you soon.